Welcome to another episode of the Practice X Factor. We're here to bring you powerful membership strategies and marketing tools so you can grow the membership base of your practice and not get stuck on the insurance bandwagon. As always, we're here to bring you timely and relevant content to help you grow your practice and really give you tools that you can implement and utilize starting today. In this episode, we're talking about an important distinction, and that is, should you have a membership plan or should you have an in-office savings plan? Now, while they may sound similar on the surface, there's some very important and different distinctions. So we've cited Costco as an example before, but recently I read an article and it was talking about Costco versus Sam's Club, and Sam's Club actually has about 100 more stores in the U.S. than Costco. But Costco's revenue is more than double Sam's Club. And I think there's some things that Costco does exceptionally well. But the important thing to remember is that as a Costco member, you have an annual membership, not an annual savings plan. And if you use verbiage in your practice that makes dentistry sound expensive or not worth it, or, if your team says things like, well, it's going to cost this much, or, well, this isn't covered by your insurance, or, well, this isn't covered by your savings plan, then you're going to groom your patients to think that way. So the question I want you to think about, in your practice is you have kind of three options, and we call this the membership income crossover. And what the membership income crossover is when you get to the point where 2/3 or more of your practice revenue are coming from your patients. Now, this could be insured or non-insured, but 2/3 of the revenue is coming from your patients. This can include credit cards, financing, FSA, HSA, check cash. This can be co-pays, this can be non-covered services, this can be membership services. And when you hit the membership income crossover, that means at least 2/3 of your revenue is coming from these sources rather than insurance. That gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of confidence to really master and make decisions for the future of your practice. So the three options that I alluded to earlier, Option 1, would you rather do more for fewer patients? Option 2, would you rather do less for more patients? Or option 3, would you rather scale and do both? So option 1, doing more for fewer patients, this would be, what some people would call a boutique practice or a comprehensive practice. This is where you're not trying to appeal to everybody, but you're getting more production, more collections, more treatment provided for fewer patients. Now, this can be a great model if you're a single doctor office and your goal is to not get on the insurance wheel where you're just running and continually doing more for less, because especially right now as we're fighting inflation and costs are rising, if you go down that insurance path, which I'm not saying is right or wrong, you just have to know the nature of the beast, you will have to continue to do more for less. So you have to be incredibly efficient, incredibly lean, and you can't try to be the high-end, best quality, best relationship, spending more time with your patients, having a 10-minute comprehensive evaluation or longer with your patients. Option 2 would be less for more patients. That would be where you are spending your time with patients for just a few minutes. You're probably doing lots of crowns, lots of insurance talk within your practice, signing up for multiple PPOs. Again, there's nothing wrong for that, but this is where you're trying to do quantity over quality. And we would never recommend you do less than standard clinical treatment, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to do the high-end treatment if that's your only strategy. Now, if you're looking at some things like, how to implement high-tech fees and things that you can charge your patients for ethically and legally that are in your best interest and theirs, you can go back and listen to some previous episodes. where we've talked about that. But the third option would be you could scale and do both. And this would be where you were doing more for more patients. But in this scenario, it is very difficult, if not impossible, that you would be the only doctor in your practice. This would be a multiple doctor, multiple hygienist practice, because you would take option one, which would be doing more for fewer patients, and then you would build and expand upon that. All right. But, at this point, you start looking at things like market share and corporate dentistry and other practices. And so you have to really focus and sharpen your marketing message to do that third option and to grow your practice that way. Now, let's talk about the membership plan versus the savings plan. Now, if you have a membership plan, this creates valuable and committed members of your practice. When you have a savings program or a discount program, you're going to create shoppers and people who think number one is saving money, saving money, saving money. Now, with a membership plan, you can still have savings as a benefit, and I would suggest you do that in most cases. That's what we do. Again, this is something you're going to want to talk with your CPA and advisor on those exact numbers, because that's where you can make some smart decisions with your CFO, CPA, those kind of things. All right. But we have a couple large credit unions in my area. One of them's called America First Credit Union. The other one's called Mountain America Credit Union. You can Google those. They're based in Utah, but they've now expanded to other states. And in fact, as of about a year ago, when I spoke with someone who was on their sales team, I believe they had expanded to 9 or so states that they could do patient financing with at least one of those credit unions. And so they're expanding to other states, and they just crush 90% of the banks here locally for personal accounts, personal loans, auto loans, home loans, because there's some controversy over credit unions and their tax laws and their nonprofit laws versus banks that are for profit. But for your practice, I would really work with, from a business standpoint, we like to work with credit unions or small and local banks. A lot of the big banks, if you follow our practice profit activator system, that is a really good way to manage the cash flow in your practice without having to read financial statements. And it's an excellent way to grow your profit. We don't have time to go into it on this podcast, but you can reach out if you'd like some more information on how to learn that system. But, working with these local and small financial institutions, they're usually a lot more interested in the small business, which, unless you have over a couple hundred employees, you're classified as a small business, which is almost all dental practices. And when you work with these kind of institutions, you can get more relationship and some advantages that you may not have. For example, we have multiple accounts with some of these financial institutions, and when we used to work with a bigger bank that I won't name, they kind of looked me in the face with blank eyes, a blank stare, like you're crazy, And with credit unions, it was no problem. So, but from a personal standpoint, if you were going to go get an auto loan or a personal account, most people go into these credit unions because they offer so much more. So when you have a member, and the credit unions, if you look the ones up I mentioned on their website, you'll see a lot of talk about members. Members come first. We do this for our members. You walk into a branch and say, hey, are you currently a member? And that just has a different connotation and a whole different value stream than savings, okay? Because every grocery store now has a discount shopper card, or gas stations have a discount this card. And there are some of them that do it really well. But you think about Costco and what they do, you're not going to Costco to get a discount. You might think that's why you're going there, but I know that I don't come out of Costco for anything less than a three-digit bill, $100 and up minimum. When I take my family there, it's usually a few $100s. Once in a while, you might come up with something less, but it's like, hey, while we're here, let's get this, let's get this, let's get this. So Costco does that incredibly well. These credit unions do it incredibly well, and they really focus on member. What are the membership exclusive benefits that you can give your patients? This is where you got to think creatively. All right, and that's really the key to a good membership plan versus an average one. There's a book I recommend, and it's by Keith Cunningham. It's called The Road Less Stupid. Now, Keith Cunningham, if you've ever read or heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad or Robert Kiyosaki, he talks about his rich dad and his poor dad. Well, Keith Cunningham was actually an inspiration for Robert Kiyosaki's rich dad that he talks about in these stories. And if you read more of the backstory, you can find out about that. But Keith Cunningham in this book, he says having the right answer is smart, but having the right question is genius. He also said the bulk of my problems are a result of indigestion and greed, not starvation. If you think about those things for a minute, most practices are running around thinking, just getting more new patients will solve all of their problems. Now, we did have a podcast going back a few episodes with Flint Geyer from the Scheduling Institute. We talked a lot about new patients. I strongly believe in new patients. I think that's the only way to scale and grow, especially with your membership program. But that will not alone solve your problems in our experience, because you really got to have a reason for your patients to come back. If it's a one and done and you have a revolving door in your practice, you're going to struggle because you're going to have patients come in, patients go out. It's very expensive to do that. And when you get complacent, as we say, complacency contaminates growth. So that's a key component of Pinecrest Practice Growth, which produces and sponsors this podcast, is when you get complacent, the growth in your practice will be hindered. And so you got to be able to ask those questions. What can we give our patients that would really make this membership plan valuable? That might be sedation, could be savings, could be huge savings, could be free depending on what value of treatment they get. All these things you have to look at your practice, what makes sense. And I would involve your office manager, your marketing assistant or marketing coordinator. I'd involve your CPA, your CFO, if you have one. Maybe not all in the same meeting, but have the people who are on the ground level doing this, have the people who are managing your numbers look at this and decide what services are the most profitable, what services your patients like the best, and then build your membership plan around that. We use SurveyMonkey for getting feedback from patients, and that's where we really find out, hey, what do our patients like? The patients in my town and the demographic I'm targeting are going to be different than yours. Don't try to be the all-around dentist who we treat all patients and we do everything for everybody, unless you're in a very rural area. But if you're anywhere where there's any kind of competition, which are most places that are desirable to live, there's going to be other dental practices around. And the key today to success is finding a niche that works well. As there's more pressure from staffing shortages, insurance, inflation, rising costs, competition, and that competition includes online things such as Smile Direct Club, whitening. There's been a couple whitening centers pop up near me where they just do whitening almost like a tanning salon. I don't think that, truthfully, these places are competition, and in fact, you could probably find a way to work strategically with them. But if you look at them as a threat, then you're going to go into competitive mode, and that's really going to stifle the creativity in your practice. So what you want to look at is, do you want to ratchet the quality up, or do you want to let the quality go down? Because you can no longer move sideways, and membership plans can really be a huge key into doing this. And you can really drive the quality up, you can drive the profit up. Most importantly, you can drive the patient loyalty, the members in your practice up. They're getting more value. They'll often drop their insurance because they see the value in membership. Make sure you're adjusting your fees accordingly. Don't just look at what your neighbor's doing where they're just charging $49 or $99 or $199 for a membership plan, that may not be profitable. You have to look at how much do you pay your hygienist. If you're a general dental practice or periodontal practice and you have hygienists, all right, you've got to look at what you're paying them per hour and think about, well, if the patient's coming to see them twice a year, excuse me, for hygiene, and they're spending an hour, that's 2 hours each. What do you pay your hygienist per hour once you add in taxes, the taxes you match, benefits, opportunity cost, all those kind of things? But always look at ways at increasing the value rather than discounting down. And, I like savings better than discount. Discount's probably the worst word to use.
For more tools and tips on how to create an X Factor membership practice, visit yourpracticegrowth.com and subscribe to our free weekly email today.